Back a couple months ago, I did an episode with Brandon Maddox, who is the founder and owner of Silencer Central. You should listen to that episode. It's episode 197. I love this company, I love this brand, and I love the American-made product that Silencer Central produces. I use the Banish 30 on my hunting rifle, and if you guys follow me on Instagram and you saw that video I put together, you'll see that it's not like what Hollywood portrays it as. It's not like it silences the rifle down into nothing. But it makes a huge difference. Like, my ears don't ring when I shoot. The animals don't know where the shot is coming from. It disorients the sound. And Silencer Central makes it super easy for you guys. Jump on to silencercentral.com and pick one out. You could ship your rifle to them. They'll thread your barrel. They'll ship it back. This is like a 10-day process. And the ATF process is shortened significantly. It's like down to 48 hours or less. It's the best time ever to get a silencer on your weapon, and you should check it out because it really is a game changer. SilencerCentral.com is where you could find them, or you can call 866-891-4494, and they're happy to answer questions. It's crazy. They actually have people that answer their phone. Again, guys, go to SilencerCentral.com. It's one of my favorite sponsors out there. These guys are just absolutely world-class with these world-class products, and I can't recommend putting a silencer on your hunting rifle enough. Save your ears, disorient the sound in case you need another shot. I mean, it's a game changer, folks. Check it out. Unless you were born yesterday, you're very well aware of the fact that a lot of companies spend a lot of money on marketing and advertising and just their overly proudness of, if that's a word, their name recognition. This is not the case with Hoffman boots, guys. Don't go drop $500 on a good pair of boots when you can go to hoffmanboots.com and check out the Hoffman Explorers. They start at $370. I could save you 10% off of that by using promo code Huntsman10. Guys, I've been traipsing through the mountains of the western United States for almost a decade in these boots. They're totally waterproof. There's no break-in period. They're every bit as good as those high-dollar boots out there that you see for a lot less. So don't waste your money on the other stuff. These boots have everything you need for a lot less, and I wouldn't steer you in the wrong direction. I wouldn't recommend them if I don't use them myself and don't absolutely love them. Check it out at hoffmanboots.com. Promo code is Huntsman10. There exists a threat, from anti-hunting groups to politicians trying to give our land away, and we won't stand for it. Those vast western landscapes provide the space for our wildlife to thrive, and a place for hunters and anglers to fuel the fire that sparks their soul. In this show, we share our love of hunting, fishing, and conservation. Here, we provide the foundation to meet these threats through passion and the grit of the American outdoorsman. Welcome to the Western Huntsman Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Western Huntsman Podcast. This is Jim Huntsman, your host, coming at you from the Broken Time Studio right here in Northwest Montana, and brought to you by Eastmans Hunting Journals. All right. So I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I am hoping you're all ready. Stockings are stuffed, and Christmas is ready. And don't forget to check out the Eastman's Christmas wish list that came out in the last magazine for some really good ideas, Christmas ideas. And this time of year is always kind of bittersweet for me because, you know, it's like I love the idea of the Christmas season, and I try to get in the Christmas spirit, but I'm also a little bit down because hunting season's over, and now we're just kind of buckling up. I'm going to be busting out the old coveralls to be plowing my ridiculous driveway and dealing with snow, and then again dealing with more snow, and I'm just not looking forward to that. So this week, I got my good buddy, Dan Pickar, one of the world's finest bow hunters, on the show. If you guys tuned in this last summer, I had him and Brian Barney on together for a School of September, and that episode went viral. It was really good, well listened to. You guys are awesome, all you listeners out there. I really appreciate that. But I wanted to bring Dan on to kind of recap the season and talk about a few issues coming up in the hunting space as we kind of roll into winter. And Dan's always a great mind to get on and listen to, and he has a lot of credibility on these topics. So, Dan, welcome to the show, brother. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. You got me all wound up when you said Northwest Montana. That's where I grew up.
Yeah, buddy. It's been I should pick your brain a little bit on it. It's been a heck of a good time learning this country up here. And I found where the big mule deer live, man. I'm
Hey,
really excited about it.
and those are a needle in a haystack anywhere, but especially up there.
Oh man, they are tough. They are tough. But I did find they're smart, man. These there's a lot of road hunters. And it like between here and in North Idaho where I hunt in North Idaho as well. I was surprised at how many rigs I saw consistently driving around and never saw parked at a trailhead. And they're not going to find those muleys. Those mule deer are in some serious country, and I'm really excited. I got a game plan for next year. I can't wait. Because I found some smokers, man.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Like during hunting season, when you're hunting, did you get one
So
killed or what happened?
so I was guiding, and I kind of happened upon one of the areas that where these mule deer were at. The guy I was guiding couldn't get up that high.
Mm.
And so all I could do, man, is just sit there and watch through the binos. Uh and I felt terrible. My client, he wanted to get up there, but I don't know. This whole guiding thing is pretty new to me, so whatever. We'll hopefully the point is I know how to get to him now, and I really like feel comfortable and confident in knowing, because I went back after season and I found him again, and I found another couple of groups of them up in the high country, and it's really tough to get into this time of year with the snow anyway. But I'm just really excited because North Idaho, when I lived over there, there's not a lot of great mule deer hunting. It's really sparse. You don't see a lot of smokers over there. And moving over here into that, I don't want to say I don't want to give the unit away or anything, but I'm sure where I'm talking about. They're up there, and I'm just really happy to have a unit that close to me that has that caliber of mule deer in it.
Yeah, Region 1 is tough because not only is it a predator cesspool, but just numbers, ungulate numbers, deer, elk, moose
Yeah.
are at historical lows. And so it's very hard to find them, but they're in pockets, right? Like what you're
Oh
describing.
yeah.
You find
Yeah.
the pockets of them. And usually once you find a pocket like that, it's good year after year, unless something changes with a fire or a big logging operation that can change
Sure.
things. If it's too high up, maybe it never gets logged and it doesn't change that often. But that's kind of what I found growing up in the Swan Range on the eastern side of Flathead Valley is kind of where I cut my teeth mountain mule deer hunting.
Mhm.
And that's how it was. And you would go all season and not see hardly any deer, let alone, a big buck. But
Mhm.
when you found a mature deer, usually it was pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how this area is, and I found it's you always could find your little 2 and 3 point bucks or whatever down lower. But once we got up into that higher country, and man, it's like it reminds me of some of the areas I used to hunt as a kid, which were high country in Utah, where there was a lot of big bucks back then. And yeah, I don't know if it's still that good down there or not. Either way, I don't care. I'll never live in
Yeah.
Utah again, but it's just it really kind of brought it home, that I made the right call. I'm really liking Montana. I mean, we've been here a year and a half now, and I don't know that you could ever pry me out of here. But
The snow is what got me kind of out of there.
dude,
And
you live in Powell, Wyoming. Isn't that just as bad, if not worse?
dude,
Oh, really?
down here, I mean, it's high desert. It's
Ah,
really
true.
dry. And on a normal year, I probably sweep a dusting of snow off my sidewalk 3 times all winter.
That's just not fair. That is
right?
not fair.
Well, and then growing up, Northwest Montana, that's basically the Pacific Northwest as far as weather and amounts of snow. And I don't know if you remember the winter of 96 and 97. That was a huge winter.
The big ice storm. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
super damaging.
I think we ended up with 8 feet of snow that winter.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to shovel off our garage, I think 3 times that winter, 3 foot of snow each time, like an incredible amount of snow. And so anyway, long story short, like I shoveled so much snow as a kid that I was like, man, all these dark, gloomy winters and all the snow shoveling. And then I, moved to Bozeman and did a bunch of guiding out of Bozeman and lived down there. I was like, wow, winter's nice down here. So I
guess that's true.
I joke that northern Wyoming is northern Mexico compared to Northwest Montana.
Yeah, but you guys don't you get really bad winds and super cold frigid temperatures, and so you kind of got to take your pick. You know, so for me with the snow, I don't personally shovel it now. It's my good buddy John Deere 3025E that I get in and him and I take care of the driveway. And so it's not terrible, but the average temperature, I don't know what you would say the average temperature here where we live is per se, but it's usually right around that 32 to 35 degrees, in the winter. That's not terrible. We barely get wind. We get periodic wind storms, but we don't, it's not like we have, like every time I've been to Wyoming, it wasn't like if you were going to get wind, it was how bad is the wind going to be today, right?
Yeah.
And like I remember trying to cast a fly rod on that. What is that? The Shoshone River out of Cody, going towards Yellowstone.
Yep.
Where I ran into that grizz. That I was fly fishing up there, and man, I couldn't even get my fly to the middle of the river. It was so freaking windy. I don't have that issue here.
Like you said, it's all trade-offs. It's all trade-offs. And eventually maybe I'll get tired of the wind and want to move back somewhere else someday. But yeah, we get the cold and we get the wind and of course the wind chills and it's super cold temperatures. So it's a trade-off.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, there's all sorts of different types of trade-offs too. I do the resident hunting opportunities in Wyoming are pretty enticing. Not that it's terrible in Montana, but there are some really good opportunities. I've been talking to our buddy, Jaden Bells has been, we've been chatting a lot lately. He was on the show a couple weeks ago, but he's got my hopes up because of how many points I have in Wyoming now. I thought I had a few years to go, but I think I'm going to put in this winter for next year. And so it sounds like it might be pretty good. What do you think? Like the difference, resident Montana hunting seasons versus resident Wyoming seasons. How does that kind of play out with you?
Yeah. So hunting all these Western states, I kind of got a taste of what each state has to offer. And Montana is an opportunity state. That's how it's managed. Very liberal seasons. They are trying to change that. It looks like it's in the works to trim down that 5-week general rifle season. But ultimately what it comes down to is Montana's best habitat is on private land, and Wyoming, our best habitat is on both, but we're fortunate to have a lot of great habitat on public land.
Yeah.
And so that's why I do feel like that for a public land hunter, Wyoming is good for that regard, because I feel like we do. I mean, it's a fact. We have more elk on public land in Wyoming than Montana does. And Montana used to, and Montana could be good if they were just to manage those predators on the western side of the state a little bit stricter, because that's where the public land is, right? Is the western half of the state. And unfortunately, that's core grizzly bear area and it's core wolf area.
Wolf, yep.
And so, the grizzly bears not being managed, those poor ungulates, they don't get a break. And I don't know if you've seen the numbers, Region 1, and specifically like the Bob Marshall Wilderness. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Oh, yeah.
When I was in college, I worked back there in the wilderness. From Spotted Bear down to Big Prairie, that's the South Fork of the Flathead, and then to Schaefer Meadows in the Middle Fork of the Flathead. So that's just one example of an ecosystem. Basically, it's kind of part of it's the greater Rockies ecosystem, and so it's kind of, that population of grizzly bears and that population of wolves. And yeah, just over the years of what the predation on those poor elk back there really, really just whittled that herd down to nothing. I mean, I think their aerial surveys, they're seeing less than 100 elk in
Oh, wow.
the Big Prairie area, in the like Danaher Meadows, which is a very historical winter ground. Once again, historical lows, all-time lows. And, the hunting back there, they used to have a depredation hunt. That's why they allow the September 15th rifle opener back there, was because of depredation in the 80s. Because
Gosh, can you imagine?
Yeah, it's your classical elk country.
Yeah.
You go back there, and it's the most beautiful elk country with no elk. That's really how it is back there now. And so, yeah, going from the 80s to now, I mean, there's nothing left. And so,
Yeah.
The bob with some grizzly bear management, because that's probably the largest hurdle now, and the wolves, and part of that too is access, right? I mean, just your average Joe isn't going to go 30 miles in the wilderness and thin out the wolves and grizzly bears. That's just not going to happen, even if the season was open.
Yeah.
But
there
still,
would need to be some really solid incentives for like some trappers to get some trap lines back there on the wolves.
Yeah.
Cause that just what they've shown in Idaho is the trappers are by far the most effective at controlling these wolf numbers. And that's really what the marshal needs. And I don't know, you gotta take into consideration if you're running like a trap line, and you've got to pay for the gas on those snowmobiles, and then the truck just getting to the trailhead with the snowmobiles, and then getting those snow machines way back in there and running your trap lines, the cost of the traps, the cost of, quote unquote cost of doing business as a trapper. It's really got to be offset. And like the Foundation for Wildlife Management helps with that. But that's such a vast chunk of land that I mean, it almost needs to be something else, on top of.
So yeah, you bring up a good point. So the way I see it, the only feasible management tactic is kind of what they do in Alaska, because a lot of that stuff is untouchable because of just it's wilderness, or you just can't get in there or whatever. There's no roads. I mean, Alaska has so few roads. But aerial gunning, I mean, that's the only way. And there are outfitters in there that run that September 15th rifle season in there, and that winds down into the end of November. And those guys are pretty much out of there by the middle of November. The outfitters are, and they they pop a couple wolves here and there, and they kill some wolves. But the bears, like, I mean, they could shoot them during the general season, but back there are these like very vast roadless areas. You would have to turn to aerial gunning and kind of follow the Alaska model if you truly want to make a dent.
And that would be the way to go. And especially if they could find a way to do that, like without the publicity aspect of it. Because can you imagine the shit show that would ensue from like these groups, like the Wolves of the Rockies organization, whatever these groups are, that are such advocates for wolves. If there was a way to do that quietly, and I don't know, it is possible, I think. But the problem with that kind of management is it's always going to attract attention, and they're always going to have to want to have, the public be aware of what's going on, so they can't be accused of flying under the radar or whatever. But I don't know, it's doable. I'd be an aerial gunner, man.
Absolutely. And it's necessary. And it's, you say that and you're absolutely right. But it comes to a point where you just have to go and do it. And you have to have the right administration. Like the current one that's in Montana now is probably the one to do it under.
Yeah.
But for example, remember when the park just decided to aerial gun all those mountain goats out of the Tetons?
Yeah.
There was no public input. There was no vote on it. They do what they want. That's the federal government. So the state of Montana should do what the people want, what we want, the ones that the managers, to do what's best for the wildlife as a whole. And that's a little bit of management. And so, I mean, ultimately that's what has to happen. It's a ballsy move, but you just got to go do it. The science backs it up too. You need to thin them down. So it's like, I mean, man, there's never going to be a moment or a situation or a management plan that's going to suffice or make happy all these earth justice groups and these
No.
wolves of the. I mean, the only thing that's going to make any of these animal rights groups happy is no hunting, hands off, human hands off. None of these people want human intervention or interaction in the wilderness or with wild animals. They don't believe we should be out there.
Yeah. They've got this fantasy of self-management, self-governance of wildlife that just has never actually been a reality. It's never been a thing. It's never been successful. It's never been reality on the ground. I mean, it's just never been a thing. But that's what they want, and it all comes out of the same, folks that just don't have any real reality on anything in life. It's just this fantasy of, oh, this is how it should be in my mind, and everybody else's opinion is irrelevant because my feelings and my emotionally intoxicated self is the only thing that matters. And I'm, how do you put that?
I mean, it's the entitlement mindset.
Yeah, right? Entitlement. Yep.
Yeah, and it's the Disneyland effect or the Nat Geo effect of these agendas that they push that they've pushed for several decades. Through Disney movies and through the Nat Geo network, and maybe the folks that are more city living, they don't have a chance to understand what country life is like or what true outdoor lifestyle is. And so they believe the Nat Geo propaganda machine that they see on cable because that's all that's really been put in front of them. And I think a big part of our job too is to try to educate those people when we can, when the opportunity arises. It's our duty as good stewards of wildlife is to educate people and show them the light and show them how this is a beautiful, renewable resource. God put these animals on this earth for us to manage and take care of and, nourish and build and grow. And that's what the intent of the Western hunting and conservation model is. And that's why we have so much wildlife in the United States today, bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You put that actually perfectly. But you're absolutely right. And I think that in terms of the educating of the folks, what I think the focus, and I've said this a million times, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, folks, but I really do think that the target market for that education is the American non-hunter, those folks that are not actively involved in anti-hunting, and then obviously the other side of the pendulum there of hunters. Those two groups, and I'm in one of those groups, our minds are made. We know what we want, we know what we feel, we know what we know. It's that in between, and we have to prevent the emotional takeover of the better propaganda, if you will, because even good information can be sold as propaganda, right? And so and hunters can have a tendency of doing that sometimes, where they're glamorizing certain things that the non-hunter would never understand. And so there's like that fine balance, but the other side, it's straight propaganda. It's what drives me crazy is on like social media, you'll see these ads. Hey, donate today to save the wolves in the Rocky Mountains. And it's like, I'm no scientist, Dan, but I live and I hunt in the Rocky Mountains. And I'm trying to figure out what wolves need saving and why people are donating money to a cause that shouldn't exist. And this doesn't come out of a place of hating wolves. It comes out of a place of reality where the wolves are populated, in some cases 10 times surpass what the Endangered Species Act called for. And you're saying that they need to be saved, even though they're breeding at a rate of almost 40% a year. And they're wiping out other species on the landscape. What exactly needs to be saved other than the people that are propagating that and profiting off of that propagation and propaganda need to be smacked in the mouth and like what is a word for like when you take away somebody's credibility? There's maybe I haven't had enough coffee yet, but there is definitely a word for it.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the word is either.
Whatever. And people that listen to this show know that I'm going to mess up all sorts of words and phrases anyway, so it doesn't matter. But the point is we need to deplatform them from being able to, like, there needs to start being consequences for people that are pushing this wrong, actual, not the whole buzzword of misinformation, the actual real misinformation. And it's just like endless, and it blows my mind that they're able to legally take money from people based on like this premise of wolves needing to be saved. I don't know.
Yeah, defame them, decredibility or whatever you want to call it, but it's the same type of people. So I believe you're right when you have these, Save the Wolf of the Northern Rockies or whatever it is, these groups that are channeling money through these organizations. And yeah, of course, their workers or their management is profiting off of this stuff. In reality, it doesn't, wolves don't need to be saved or protected. Let's be honest. If you've ever lived a year in the West in a rural community, you'd know that it's completely just propaganda, but it's the world that we live in today. I mean, look what happened with Hunter Biden and his dealings with Ukraine, and how the U.S. has been channeling money to Ukraine, and then that money eventually filters back through into Hunter's pocket and eventually Biden's pocket. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's complete nonsense, but it's a way to channel money. That's the the biggest things. The answer is money. What's the question, right? That's what Ike says all the time. That's what we all say of anything that ever happens in the world. The answer is money. So what's the question?
Yep. That's a great way to put it. I'm gonna plagiarize that. It's interesting. We were just talking. I pulled up there's this one group. They're called Relist Wolves Campaign. And for some reason they deleted all their posts except for one. I wonder what's going on with that. That like seriously makes me curious. Anyway, well, I want to talk about this decision that just came down, that the feds basically have 45 days to make a decision on whether or not the Yellowstone grizzly bear population is to remain on the endangered species list or not. What's your initial reaction to this news?
Yeah, so this came back from July when there was a hearing about this, and Wyoming's own Harriet Hageman was basically pressuring the ESA, Endangered Species Act, the head of that, to do just that. And their deadline was actually July 20th, but we got to put it off. And so now it's January 20th, which I thought was ironic because that's Inauguration Day. But what it is that the ESA has to make a ruling on it. And basically they're in a corner because, as Harriet Hageman pointed out, all of the bullet points on the delisting, or on the listing rather, have been met. The criteria have been met for the grizzly bear in the Western Rockies, the Yellowstone Great Area Ecosystem and the Northern Rockies ecosystem. Those are the two ecosystems that we're talking about here, and the surrounding areas. And so basically, at that hearing in July, that's what it set was, okay, by January 20th, the ESA head, the Department of Interior, has to make a ruling on this. And their hands are tied. I mean, all the points have been met, and the grizzly bear should seamlessly be delisted if the Endangered Species Act is as true as it is supposed to be. We know it's not. We know it's just a tool to stop hunting. But that's kind of my take. And they've been putting it off. And so it'll be interesting, though, because there's all these groups that are petitioning to, go the other way and keep them listed. And so, I get questions all the time. Dan, are we going to be hunting grizzly bears next year? Or are we going to be hunting them in 2 years or 3 years? And the answer is, I don't know. I do not know. It's a 100% political space. This grizzly bear, the management of grizzly bear is all politics. And it's unfortunate because that basically throws all the science out the window, which these people, the opposition, claims is so important and true, is the science, right? But when it goes against their agenda, that's not the case. And so it's just an ever revolving door of lawsuits and BS, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, to your point where when you're talking about the ESA, the Endangered Species Act, it started with good intentions, but it's like you said, it's morphed into this political thing, and it has no more credit. It has no credibility anymore. And I'll like, it's too bad too, because if there was a species that went on that was actually and legitimately endangered, and they wanted to list this animal or whatever, it's like I can't not that I would make any difference, but I would never take that serious anymore. The grizzly bears should have been delisted years ago. And from a hunting standpoint, the effects that grizzly bear have, not just on themselves but other species, but on humans that are in the wild and interacting, it makes it a little bit, obviously a more dangerous place. But we've got to get to a point in which the sanity of something like the Endangered Species Act has to come back around to a point in which, like, everybody can. I don't know if I'm explaining this right, man. It's such a difficult topic, but like, how did it get hijacked by extremists? And why do we allow it as a group, as a society? How do we allow these extreme organizations to that actually, if you were to shake out all of the nuts and bolts of this thing, they are a minority of the entirety of the population, right? Of our society. But in things like this, it's these minority groups that are just loud and wicked and wild and obnoxious and don't have any real credibility, that seem to maintain this grasp on things that we value, such as recovering a species and getting them to the point. Like, it should be both wolves and grizzly bears. This should be something that we all, hunting and anti-hunting, should celebrate, a point in which we get an animal to a point we can remove it off the endangered species list and call it a success story. And the grizzly bear is no different from that. But instead, it turns into this emotional jar of bullshit that keeps getting dumped onto everybody's plate, and we all suffer for it with the exception of them.
People are dying every year because of it.
People die, and I've said it many times, like, there should be repercussions for these groups that keep them on the endangered species list, because they do legitimately have blood on their hands. Yep. What say you?
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And I think it goes to what we're seeing on a national level today. What's happened to the Democratic Party? It's been hijacked by extremists. Mm-hmm. And it all started, this polarization all started during the Obama presidency, when he started allowing men to go into women's bathrooms. And I'm meaning the transgenders or whatever, to go into women's bathrooms. And that polarized the country, and that polarized these parties. And that's the beginning of the extremism of the American left, right? And so these are the same people that have taken over the Democratic Party, the same type of people, where it's their way or the highway. You don't have a right to differ from their opinion. And if you do have a different opinion, then they want to burn you down. They want to break all your windows.
You're a racist and a bigot and a homophobe and a
fascist. You're a fascist.
Yeah, they don't even know how. It's so funny hearing them say fascist, because they don't clearly they don't understand the meaning of fascism. But American-made products are the name of the game for me and the Western Huntsman. I really will go out of my way and spend more money to buy things that are American-made and keeps jobs and things like that right here in the United States of America. That brings us to Vantage Point Archery. If you haven't listened yet, wherever you listen to your podcast as, go find episode 201, Vantage Point Archery, with Ryan Corkwell and Jeff Stringer. Those are the founders of Vantage Point Archery, and these are great dudes. They'll give you a lot of the insight and information that you need on picking out your broadhead for this season. Don't wait any longer, guys, because season is going to be here before we know it. It's almost here. I am going to be shooting the VPA Omega with bleeders for this elk season. They have the single bevels, 2-blade, 3-blades. These are great broadheads. They're American-made. They're tried and true. They're tested. I've been shooting them all summer. Really impressed with this company, and couldn't be happier having them as a sponsor on this show. Happy to partner with them. Thanks, guys. Yeah, you're exactly right. I've said it a million times regarding the Democrat Party. It has been hijacked. Look, do you think that Jimmy Carter could get the nomination today for the Democrat Party and run?
Holy
Or
cow, he would be president today.
for
JFK. I mean,
for the
oh,
Democrat Party?
if the Democratic Party was like it was in the 80s
Oh
today,
yeah, yeah,
it'd be wildly popular. But now, I mean, he's
yeah.
a Republican now. I mean, look
Oh,
at Elon Musk. Look at
so was like Bill Clinton
RFK.
even. Yeah.
RFK, Bill Clinton, all these guys that are historically the old school Democrats that honestly they're pretty conservative. They just have some liberal social leanings is what they are. And so yeah, all these guys are Republicans now.
Yeah.
And so I was, for what it's worth, I was arguing with this person, I won't mention any names, about how, oh, there's going to be a blue wave this election and on and on and on. And I'm like, you're just as disconnected from American society as the American left in Washington. They're so completely disconnected from American society. And all these Democrats that historically have been Democrats, they have common sense too. And they know that, like, okay, a biological man competing in women's sports, that's wrong. A biological man going into a women's bathroom is wrong. And so that's, I think, basically how the election wound up the way it did, is just basic common sense of, wanting to protect our children. We want to protect America's daughters, right?
Yeah, when you strip all the BS out of all that, man, like nobody actually thinks that stuff is a good idea. And I kind of blame the Democrat, the run-of-the-mill old school Democrat. It's their fault. Their apathy led to this extremism. By them not saying that, I'm actually not okay with my 6-year-old deciding to change genders and having these doctors and government entities making the decision to castrate them and let them go into the opposite sex bathroom and play on opposite sex sports and run around not knowing what gender they are and come up with all these different genders to call themselves. And their apathy with that kind of extremism, and it's not even just with that, it's anything woke. Anything woke where you can't speak your mind or you're going to offend somebody. I'm sorry, that is weak. That is a weak-minded society. When you can't speak your mind in a free society, you are weak. If you can't express an opinion and say, hey, I'm a little suspicious that this virus didn't actually come from a bat at a wet market in China. It may have actually come from, what's that place called? Oh, the coronavirus lab in Wuhan. Maybe, again, I'm no scientist, but shit, that doesn't make sense to me. And all of a sudden you're demonized, and the apathy coming from that same side of the aisle, where they didn't stand up and say, that is crap. You should let those people express their opinion. You should let them say and make their own decision whether or not they're going to wear a mask or castrate their children or sell sex to kindergartners or, all these things that have been taking place that come out of the American left. It's their fault. Their party got hijacked and they took an absolute whopping this last November because of it. Because I think people, even Democrats, that run of the mill Democrat, they got sick and tired of being told how to think, what to say, when to say it, and what to believe. And even a lot of them will secretly went into that voting booth and went the other direction, to the surprise of the intoxicated soccer mom that they had running for president against him. It's ludicrous, man.
And a good example of this is in Montana, the Senate race with John Tester and Tim Sheehy. So Tester, I mean, I guess you could call him widely popular because he was a senator for 20 some years. But this guy goes to Washington and votes with the left. He votes with these people that are proponents of everything that you just described. And it wasn't even close this year.
No, and he got annihilated by a guy nobody had ever really even heard of.
Yeah.
And that's why, because it's not like Tester was like this wildly leftist Democrat. I mean, he's a pretty moderate Democrat and kind of a down to earth Montana type kind of guy. as far as Democrats go, he was actually quite tolerable until the last few years when everything went and he sided with sexualizing our children and changing their genders and castrating them and telling everybody that they can't speak their mind and censoring people that had different opinions and calling everybody racist for baking the wrong kind of bread. It just all the insanity that came out of it. Montanans were sick of it, and yeah,
Yep.
Sheehy won hands down. I'll tell you what, I'm glad it's over too, man, because
Yeah.
I was running out of places to put all those political postcards between Sheehy and Tester. You'd never think that a Montana Senate race would generate that much buzz, but it did. It did, and the outcome speaks for itself.
Unbelievable amount of buzz. And I'm so excited for Montana because what that means is a lot of these folks came out and voted, and a lot of these old time Democrats that live in eastern Montana and central Montana, they went and voted Republican.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, that's proof on it. I mean,
Yeah.
right there. And I know a lot of these folks definitely voted for Tester in the past, but yeah, once you see who he's associated with and what he's voting for in Washington,
Yeah.
I don't care how nice he is and how rural Montana he's trying to be, and how I laugh too that Montana, the Democrats are so broken in Montana because they have two things, two issues that they run on, and that's like the big bad right is going to take away your public lands, and the other one is they're going to outlaw abortion too. I mean, that's what they have to run on, and they've been running on that for ever since I was a kid there. And yeah, it's never going to happen on the public lands parts. They're not going to take away public lands. The right isn't. The abortion thing, I mean, it's an interesting thing, and not that I want to talk about that on this podcast, but it's up to the states now. I mean, that's
how it's supposed to be.
That's how it was ruled, and so it's not a presidential thing. It's not an executive branch thing. It's a states thing, and there are some states that are outlawing abortion. So whether you believe that or not, if you want an abortion, you got to move to a different state or go to a different state.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, hey, it's
when you look at the foundational principles of the founding of the United States of America, all those kind of issues were supposed to be states issues. There's not supposed to be this overarching federal government that meddles in public education or the decisions of things like medical laws and whatnot. That's all supposed to be state level. And that you can look at some of the cause and effect of the American Civil War. A lot of that was, a lot of people in the South like to defend the Confederacy and say, well, the Civil War wasn't about slavery; it was about states' rights. Well, they're not wrong. The problem is the states' rights issues that they were debating really did center around slavery, and if you took that out of the equation, we wouldn't have had a civil war. But it was a states' rights issue. It was not supposed to be a thing where the federal government came in and told the states what they could and couldn't do. And so that's where that argument comes from. And so foundationally speaking, having abortion may be a decision of the states is appropriate. But yeah, you're right, man. Montana's such a mixed bag of Democrats too. Like you have like these university type extremists in places like Missoula and Bozeman. And then you have kind of the old school farmer Democrat, right? And like they don't mesh. And I have a roofing company. One of my crews, they're Hispanic. They're actually from Mexico. They're legal though. And so what was funny is this particular customer I had down in Missoula, I don't know how we got on the topic, but she's an older lady that worked at the college down there, and she's going, "Oh well, I can't wait for this election to be over." And I don't know, and she goes, "I don't know, maybe you're a Trumpster, but I gotta say, I can't believe what he's doing to the Hispanics and what he's threatening to do to the Hispanics." Election day happens while her roof is being installed. My guys are there, and they're up there freaking celebrating that Trump won. She couldn't believe it, man. Because I pulled up to the job, and they're like, Trump won and blah blah blah, and they're high fiving me, and the ladies down on her front porch just bewildered that these guys of so-called these Hispanics or whatever they want to label them, like I don't even look at them. They're just my guys, man, and they work their ass off, and I don't really care what color they are. And they're high fiving me over Trump, and she was just absolutely bewildered. It was awesome. It was a great outcome.
That's how clueless these people are, and that you see that everywhere on the news. They're like, well, you're going to deport the people that pick your fruit and all this necessary work, labor, whatever in the country. And it's like, hello, there are millions of legal immigrants, Mexicans, that do that already. And actually,
and have been doing it.
And what you illustrated, these legal immigrants that are working jobs, they don't want the competition of illegals coming into the country. They had to bust their butt and go through the process to become a citizen. They don't want that competition, and that's proof of it right there. And the left, I mean, that they don't have any reasoning or logic behind those comments or this lady that you're talking about. There's no logic behind it.
No, it's just, there's no meat behind the bite. It's just there's nothing there. It's just making this assumption because Rachel Maddow told them that that's what was going on, and they take that and run with it with really no meat and potatoes behind the argument. It's ridiculous, and then they're just blown away when my crew of Mexican dudes show up to do the roof, and they're all excited that Trump won. It's like, no kidding. Like these folks, they came here for opportunity. They wanted to be Americans. They did it the legal way, and they don't want to compete for people that are going to do it for half the cost because they don't have to claim the income. So get a clue. It's not rocket science. So,
and personally, I hope they do come around and round up the illegals. And that sounds bad. Too. And it sounds bad in the terms that, the left is going to paint Trump as Hitler for,
that's what they do in all the other countries.
Yeah. Well, no, they do. They go hunt down the illegals and deport them. Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think would happen if you illegally show up in El Salvador? What do you think is going to happen? Like you're going to show, okay, you're a dorky white guy. You show up and start an accounting firm, but you're not there legally. Like, what do you think is going to happen? Yeah, you think they're just going to be like, "Oh, that's okay. They need our help."
Yeah, exactly. No other country on the planet.
No, that does not happen. There's a couple of European countries that they have the same, ridiculous immigration policies that the left does here with Middle Eastern countries or whatever. But other than that, outside of that, you don't like. What do you think is going to happen if you get on a plane and fly to China and decide to take up residency illegally without the proper channels being taken? Like you're going to end up in some no-name prison breaking rocks. It's just insane that we have to be held to some higher standard. It's ridiculous. So
heck, when I flew to Australia to go bow hunting, I didn't have my visa filled out properly, and they almost didn't let me come into the country.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't have it number one completed on time. Oops. But number two, I didn't have all the information down, and so I almost missed my flight. But just something simple like that, like I'm an American, I have absolutely no record, and they're like, "Oh, we're not going to let you in the country because you forgot to dot your I and cross your T on this letter here." And it's like, that's the world. That's how countries work. And to not have a process or anything and just flood into a country, that's not even, you're not a country if that's you're not your agenda. Yeah,
there's no sovereignty. You've got to have borders. You've got to have regulations. Have you ever seen there are some like crazy requirements? What country is that? If you want to move to, I don't even remember what podcast I was listening to. Maybe it was like Joe Rogan or something. But to move to like New Zealand is it New Zealand? And like you had to bring something of value to that country. Like you had, okay, maybe you're a doctor, or maybe you have some specific type of welding skill that a certain percentage of companies could find useful in that country or whatever. But there was like serious things that you had to do to even be considered to come to these countries. But yet we are here in the United States, we're the assholes for having any thought of having a border system. It's just it's so lunacy. How did we get on this topic?
No logic. Well, okay,
Yeah,
we can circle back because I have some good stuff here.
yeah.
Because that's what it is. It's no logic.
Mm-mm.
The opposition, it's absolutely ludicrous. The lack of thought and logic behind this. But some of these comments. So there's a fairly large opposition, obviously, that you could have guessed, that are going to fight the delisting of grizzly bears
Mm-hmm.
between now and January 20th. And of course, all these judges, the liberal judges, come into play here. But some of these talking points or some of the reasonings here, I'm going to read a couple things. But
Yeah, I'd love to hear them.
you have all these groups, right? All these environmentalist groups that have come together and they've made statements on why they believe that the grizzly bear should not be delisted. And man, there's a ton of them of all these different, the Earth Justice is the first one. And
Earth Justice.
yeah, the Center for Biological Diversity, the Endangered Species Coalition, Friends of the Clearwater, Great Bear Foundation, the Native Carnivore Protection sector of the Humane Society. So any time that the Humane Society gets involved, it's an anti-hunting group.
Oh,
as
absolutely.
We've seen, they've infiltrated the Game and Fish in California, and they're working on Colorado right now too. A couple other one, National Wildlife Campaign for the Sierra Club. Anyway, so these people, I mean, obviously enough is never enough, but what they're saying, they have their scientist, this guy that has basically ruled or, listed out these reasons starting going back to 1993 on a recovery plan and what is considered recovery, like true recovery for a grizzly bear, but Dr. Servenheen. But so this is what they're going off of, that grizzly bears in the Northern Rockies only live in 4% of their former range in the lower 48. So 4%. And this guy's supposed to be, he's a doctor, he's supposed to be a scientist, but okay, so what's the definition of the grizzly bear range? I mean, for us, you could say the grizzly bear range is all the way to North Dakota, all the way south into Colorado, but it doesn't mean that's their actual core range or their home range. Just because
wasn't there grizzly bears on the eastern seaboard back in the day?
Not to my knowing.
I'm going to look it up. Keep going with what you're saying.
To my knowledge, yeah. So basically what they're going to say is that, the grizzly bears, they only occupy just a fraction of their former range. But that's the thing, the former range. What's considered their former range? Because one bear wandered out to Nebraska in 1880, or Lewis and Clark saw one bear on the Missouri River on their expedition, like that's not science, and that's not
science.
No, that's complete nonsense. And so that's kind of what they're going off of, and it's just their opinion of like, well, they're not recovered, and these states don't have the ability to do that because this year was an all-time high for mortality rates for grizzly bears due to conflict, due to collisions, rail, train collisions. Problem bears, I think it hit 70, but it's like, it's always been 50 to 70 bears a year.
Yeah.
That are exterminated by state agencies or federal agencies, or if there was a hunting season, even albeit a small hunting season, a few tags, that would be greatly reduced. But to answer that, yes, grizzly bears once lived in eastern North America, but the numbers were greatly reduced by Western expansion. Grizzly bears once ranged from Alaska to Mexico and from the Pacific Ocean to the Mississippi River. So not the eastern seaboard, but they definitely went beyond, like what we were just talking about with the Dakotas even. So that number is squampus. That number, that 5% of their range or whatever they were talking about, or 4% of the range, that's already out of whack because of that, like you could make the case that they only live in 1% of their original historic range. Yeah.
Like saber-toothed tigers shared the same range as grizzly bear. Like you could just make shit up and make these statistics. That's why I don't like, it doesn't even make sense,
And that's what they're going off. That's what they're basing this off of. And all they need are these district judges, obviously, over the last several years to rule on it. I mean, they're federal judges, but they're district judges. And we had a plan in place in 2016. Wyoming had a draw for grizzly bear.
So did Idaho. Yeah. One guy, there was one tag and a guy drew it, was all excited. And then that judge banned the hunt. And stopped it.
District judge stopped it all because of that. And it's just like, and what that's done. And it's kind of hand in hand with the nonsense that's come out of the American left since Obama. But people are fed up.
Yeah.
And people have, we've met all the criteria. Anybody that lives out here or has any sort of dealings with rural life in the American West knows the problem that they are out here and knows how many there really are. And let's be honest, say they're delisted and there's 4 tags or whatever in the state of Wyoming, that's going to do nothing. That's not going to do nothing. But what's happened, regardless whether they're delisted or not, people are fed up. People are shooting them. People are running into them, and you got aggressive bears, and they're blowing them down. People aren't carrying bear spray anymore. People are rolling cocked and locked, ready to kill in some of these areas because that's how crazy it's gotten.
They have to be, man. Yeah. They have to be. Like you think where I live, I don't go into the woods without a 10 millimeter ready to go, or even when I was guiding, man, I carried my 30. I call it the hell bitch. The model 94 3030, man. I carried that bad boy with my 10 millimeter. I'm in thick grizzly country up here. I don't want any chance of that grizzly, getting one up on me or whatever, especially if I'm hunting with my girls. I mean, come on, like you'd have to be an idiot. And that's what I was saying earlier as to that's where the blood is on these hands of these advocates that what did you call them? The earth justice warriors or something.
Yeah. That's like the head of this opposition, this petitioning is
that's their name. Huh?
Earth Justice. Yeah. It's a big anti-hunting, bunny hugger group. Yeah.
Earth Justice. Where do they come up with these? Let's sit around a fire and think of the dumbest name we can come up with that makes no sense, as if because of their opinion they're justified, but anybody else's opinion is unjustified. That's essentially what they're saying. Oh, I just found their website.
Funded by Hollywood. That's how they
Give
roll.
Today, because the earth needs a good lawyer. Oh, yeah. There you go. We know what a Trump administration means for the environment and for the communities. We've fought these fights before and won. Yeah. Man, I should try to get one of these guys on my show. I wish they would. I always find these groups and I can never get them on my show, man. They would melt.
You should, get one of these Montana groups that are part of this.
I've tried. What are some of the names?
So like one is, let me pull it back up here. The coalition, the Clearwater Coalition, Friends of the Clearwater, right? That one. Oh
yeah. Hold on. I'm looking that up.
And then there's another one, the Bitterroot. Where is it? Wild Earth Guardians. That's a famous one that's been around.
Yeah, they've already kind of blocked me. Friends of the Clearwater. I found that. Okay.
Yep.
Let me click our work staff. If I go to staff, then I can usually find somebody and get an email.
And Friends of the Bitterroot. That's the other one.
Okay, let me pull that one up real quick before I do a search. Friends of the Bitterroot. Whoop. My big fat fingers trying to type fast. Dan, it doesn't work very good. Friends of the Bitterroot. There we go. All right, I got both those groups. I'll work on trying to get some of them on. And for me, Dan, it wouldn't even be. It's not like I'm challenging them to a debate. I'm not trying to put them on the spot and be a jerk or anything like that. I literally want to, from a human to human conversation, I want to know what makes them tick, what motivates them to take one particular species and disregard every other species on the landscape. Like what motivates a person to look at something through such a shallow lens where it's only the wolf can thrive. Everything else, screw it. We don't care that the wolf is, each wolf kills 20 elk a year. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's like that's the kind of conversation I want to have. It's not like I want to attack them and turn it into a big debate, although I would be happy to do that. But that would be better like in live on a stage or something. I'd love to debate some of these anti-hunting folks. But yeah, okay, man. I got two groups to go after. When I say go after, try to, get somebody to agree to come on the show.
Yeah, I think it's good, and I think you're going to find that their IQ is so low that you're not even going to be able to make any headway with these people because they're so brainwashed into their way of thinking. But at least you could get them on and go easy on them and let them illustrate what they're talking about, and just to broadcast their incompetence and their backwards thinking. I mean,
yeah. I because that's the thing is I don't think that you'd get somebody like this on and you get somebody from Friends of the Bitterroot. You get them on a show like this. I'm not going to change their mind. They're not going to leave here suddenly looking at how many points they need to draw a mule deer tag in Wyoming after, right? Yeah. That's not, and that wouldn't be the goal really. So anyway, yeah, that's really good to know. I'm going to go through this. This is actually, they have pretty extensive websites. Like there's a lot of information. Probably. Oh, well, they have an entire tab dedicated to climate change. I'm sure that's riveting. Okay. Go back to this other one. Which one do you, yeah. Friends of the Clearwater.
Yeah. Friends of the Clearwater, Friends of the Bitterroot. Yeah. I mean, reach out to both, but they're probably all the same people anyway. They
probably are.
Yeah, making it look bigger than what they really are, just to think that they're going to have more of a pull, more of a voice, on the grand scheme of things.
Cool. What do you think is going to come out of this, man? How do you think this is going to go with this grizzly bear decision mandate by January 20th? So actually, before you answer that, so for those of you listening, essentially how this breaks down is, or what this means is the judges saying that the United States Fish and Game has 45 days to make a decision as to whether the grizzly bears are to be delisted or remain on the ESA. Is that kind of the gist of it, Dan?
Yes. That's exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what the order is. Okay. United States Fish and Game, whatever. The feds, you have 45 days to make a decision whether or not they are to remain on the endangered species list or not. And the problem is they're kind of backed into a corner because of all of the like Wyoming. I think it was May of 2022 or something. Flat sued them because they hadn't made a decision yet. Yep. And so, or maybe it was 23. I don't remember. But the state of Wyoming sued them for lack of decision because they technically had 12 months, somewhere around 18 months ago, to make this call, and they still have yet to make the decision. So the judge basically got fed up and said, you have 45 days to make the decision, or I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the consequence will. Maybe the judge would make the decision. Who knows? Yeah,
that's a good question. I don't know that answer either. But I do think, no matter what happens on the 20th with this decision, this ESA decision, I think it's important to reach out to your lawmakers, and we've been saying this forever, and put pressure on them to delist the bears. So put pressure in Washington, and if anything's going to happen, it's going to be in the next 4 years now. And I think I'm going to write to Don Trump Jr. And be like, dude, hey, this grizzly bear thing, talk to your dad.
Yeah.
Let's get something done.
Because, I've been trying to get him on my show, man. But I can't get a response from him. So
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, he's super busy.
Yeah. Come on, he's the president's son.
And I might even reach out to Joe Rogan, because I go back and forth with him about broadheads and hunting. And if anybody could reach Don, it's Joe. Yeah. And he knows Donald too. So like something has to be done, and we're gonna need something crazy. Not crazy. I think it's absolutely logical and absolutely feasible to just an executive order or whatever that he could be like, okay, we're gonna leave this up to the states, and there's no federal judge or district federal judge that can say otherwise. And
that's how
something like that.
Again, that's how it should be. The
Yeah.
federal Fish and Wildlife should not overpower the state agencies. The state agencies are the ones that manage the game. You can't be. This would have 100 years ago would have been absolutely insane to think that the federal government would come and step on the toes of a state agency and take control over something like wildlife management. This is where we've gotten, and this is part of our problem just as a society. A bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. does not know wildlife management in Unit 4 of Idaho better than the wildlife managers in Unit 4 of Idaho do. And that is the problem. We have to have the local management agencies have the final say on this stuff. They're on the ground. They don't have the influence of all these Friends of the Clearwater and what was the other one? The Bitterroot.
Friends of the Bitterroot, yeah.
Friends of the Bitterroot. All these lobbyist type organizations that take everybody's money for the sake of paying off and propagating and trying to persuade and institute their influence over things like federal agencies like the Federal Fish and Wildlife. Rant over. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I hope I will say I'm the most optimistic I've ever been about it. I hoped, in 2016 during Trump's first 4 years that, something would be done, but we all know that was kind of, and he said it too, like he learned a lot his first term.
Yeah.
And now he's going in guns a-blazing, getting people in place and actually going to get stuff done. So yeah, my hopes are at all-time highs in the next 4 years.
Too.
We will be hunting grizzly bears.
Yeah, me too. I agree. I think that that's just what's going to happen. I think that for a change, like possibly for the first time in our adult lives, Dan, actual data, facts, and reality are going to win the day. I that's what my optimism is. I don't think that fantasy, unrealistic expectations, and emotional fantasies are going to rule anymore. I think that that's what the change is going to be. And so, yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. Man, we didn't even recap your season, but can you talk about a little bit, what's going on with like TagHub, the mule deer, or I'm sorry, the Deer Collective now is what it's called, and the Elk Collective. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the collectives, the Deer Collective, Elk Collective, a little bit of renaming there on the mule deer course of yesteryear, but we have these specials going on. We're going to roll with this Black Friday special that we're continuing to do, but you basically get the whole farm. You get TagHub, you get the Deer Collective, the Elk Collective, you get Cryptek gear, you get a knife, you take your pick on some of these premiums that we're offering for $100. I'm not supposed to say the price because it could fluctuate depending on what items are available, but it's not going to be any more than $129. And so that's the big push that we have going now is the huge bundle for $129 maximum. It probably will be even cheaper than that. I think Black Friday, it was $89 or $79 for all of it. And to give you guys some perspective of value, I mean, just the course, if you go onto the elkcollective.com or onto the website, the mule deer course alone is $89, and that's just for the course. So this is like our biggest sale we're ever doing.
Don't you? There's like I'm on the website now on the Eastmans.com, but isn't there a way to do like a monthly thing?
Yes.
So they can do like, I don't know, I don't remember. It was like $10 or $20 a month or something like that, and you can get all of it.
Yep, $10.99 a month, and and that's for the Elk Collective. We don't have that set up for the Deer Collective yet, but you can do it monthly too. Yeah, absolutely.
Because right now, if you jump on the website, am I not allowed to say the prices?
You can. What's listed on the website?
I mean, I'm on the website right now. If you guys are listening, go to eastmans.com. You get magazine plus the bow hunting magazine, TagHub, the Deer Collective, and the Elk Collective. and it looks like you get a cryptic. Dude, I might do this just to get that vest. That's cheaper than if I went on the cryptic website and bought that vest.
Even
But
for a gift to somebody, like gift it
yeah,
to somebody. Yeah, that's as good as a Christmas
it's
gift as you'll get.
$89.99 for all that right now. And then you could do $99 and get like a couple of knives and some sunglasses and all that. Ike said he's going to send me some of those loophole sunglasses, man. I'm pretty stoked about that because I was looking at them online. But yeah, no, that's a great deal. And for you guys listening, TagHub is for dudes like me that don't want to spend hours upon hours going through data on different fish and game websites to figure out what the best unit is with the amount of points that I have within my budget. TagHub does all that for you, and it simplifies it. And if you really want to geek out, the information is also in there. Because like I think, Dan, you're more like this than I am. You want to know like specific details about harvest results over the last 10 years or whatever. For me, I don't really care that much about that. I want to know what my opportunity and access to public land is and things like that. And then once you figured out your unit and you figured out, okay, I have enough points to draw an elk tag in such and such unit in Wyoming, because me and Dan are right now advocating all non-residents go to Wyoming and stay out of Montana. Pretty sure that's what we agreed to, right? But no, totally kidding. But the virtual the two virtual courses, one of them being the Elk Collective. I've been talking about the Elk Collective for like 4 years now. And I can tell you guys that from its founding to what it is now becoming a part of Eastmans, to like Dan and Brian and everybody putting that kind of input into it, you will not find a virtual course with more valuable information for your mental toolbox for elk season, no matter if it's archery or rifle, anywhere on the planet. And that is saying something, but I sincerely mean it. It's a great collection of multiple different elk hunting experts getting together, sharing their tactics and tips and recommendations, and it's all available for that. I mean, $89.99. Come on, I'd buy whiskey for more than that.
Exactly. To make that even better, if you just want to buy the course, use code SAVE50 and you'll get it for $45.
Yeah. That's so just for the 50. Course, yeah.
So there you go. So if you want to buy just the course, the Mule Deer Collective or the Elk Collective or both, use code SAVE50 and you get half off right there if that's all you want to go for.
Yeah, that's a great deal.
So
it really is. So that's awesome. I love it. Guys, check that out. The Eastmans website is always in the show notes of all these episodes, and along with all our sponsors that I can't thank enough. You know, Silencer Central. I've got Vantage Point Archery, Phelps Game Calls, Hoffman Boots, Barnes Bullets. I'm kind of going off the top of my head. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody, but I can't thank our sponsors enough because without them, this show would not be possible. So definitely check them out and support those sponsors that support this show. Dan, where can everybody find you, brother?
Yeah, social media. I'm always on there. YouTube channel. Check out our YouTube channel. We have a couple new episodes coming up. We're going to release Luke Washington's bighorn sheep hunt here over Christmas.
Nice.
He hunted with an outfitter for 10 days, and I took him, and we killed a nice ram after that whole excursion. And we did it on our backs, and we had horses too, but it was quite the... So
that is so cool.
Recap on that. Like, yeah, we bust up through the snow and got up as far as we could with the horses. Then we walked another mile and a half, and we're on top of the world, like on the park boundary, way back there. Killed a great ram. Just an incredible experience. So that episode is going to be dropped on the Eastmans Hunting Journal's YouTube channel around Christmas. So keep your eye out for that, along with Ike's. He took his family to Africa. They went rhino hunting. So that's another cool one. Yeah, about rhino hunting in Africa. So those are the two Beyond the Grids coming up. Of course, Facebook.
Cool.
I'm writing in the magazines, of course, Eastman's Bow Hunting Journal. Check that out. Always articles in that, Anchor Point, gear reviews, And I did a Q&A. So with Brian on our podcast, Life of the Bowhunter, that's another place you can find me and Brian, or Eastman's Elevated.
Yep.
We did a Q&A, and we had like 100 questions come in, and we did 2 recordings, 2 full episodes of just Q&As. And I had these extra ones. So I was like, well, heck, I don't want to leave these guys hanging. So I wrote an article. And so I listed.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
10 more questions from our listeners and answered them inside the magazine.
You.
So yeah, something a little different, and I had fun with it. And I didn't want to leave anybody out. So yeah, if there's any sort of digital media or print media, you'll find me in it. So.
Oh yeah. And you guys, if whether you're new to elk hunting or you've been doing it a long time, you want to see some cool freaking content, go find all of the Eastman's Beyond the Grid episodes of Dan's either elk or mule deer hunts, and they are surely not to disappoint. It's actually some of my favorite content that gets, if it's you or Brian, I'm on it like a badger on a whatever badgers eat.
Yeah.
I had an old timer of mine. This customer. That's what I was going for. He said, "Jim, I'd be on that like a honey badger on a beehive." And so I've always had that in my mind.
Yeah.
Those anecdotes, man. I love it. Well, thanks a bunch for joining me, man. I always enjoy having you on. I love the fact that you're just unafraid to talk about whatever topics, top of mind at the moment, and just appreciate it a lot. And let's do it again in the future.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and it's fun. I look forward to podcasts like this because, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to put it, I don't really get political anywhere else. And so if you want to hear politics or about what's really going on in my brain about the Endangered Species Act or wildlife management or ballot box biology, this is where you find it.
This is where you'll find it. Yep.
I enjoy it.
Yep. Good. Well, thanks again, and I can't wait to see some of this content coming out, and had a heck of a season. I appreciate following you because it's a lot of fun, man. So let's do it again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds great. Merry Christmas. God bless America.
Merry Christmas. You made it. That's the end of the episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure you're following us on Instagram @TheWesternHuntsman and write us a good review at Apple Podcasts. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Stay Western, and I'll see you on the mountain.